Okay, and we are live. Welcome, everyone. It doesn't look like anybody's watching currently, but I'm sure we'll have a few people tune in here in a minute. Today we have Shetan. How you doing, Shetan?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you.
So what have you been up to lately?
Oh my gosh. So we have uh the Squatch GQ publications, but now we have five of them. So there is
Oh,
Squatch GQ magazine, there is Cryptozoology Digest, there is Into the Liminal Abyss Paranormal magazine, there is Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures magazine, and the newest one to the group is Rockhound and Prospector magazine. With probably two more magazines coming out this year. I am aiming to bring out one right before March, called the Houndstooth magazine, and it's dedicated to the kind of like travel and leisure and bon appetit for dogs. So the first issue that's coming out is actually a cookbook called Bark Arf Petite, and it'll have recipes for making treats and goodies for your dogs that are not only tested and cooked by me, but they are by me. I cook the treats. The dogs eat the treats. They test them, but they are also veterinarian approved. So I have a veterinarian and a vet tech who look at all the ingredients and the recipes and tell me, this looks good for dogs, or no, don't do that. Which, I mean, I've worked with dogs for almost 40 years now, so I pretty much know like everything they can eat, and you know. So, but that'll be coming out in hopefully by March. So, going to be a big year for publishing. Hopefully, I can not go crazy.
yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to work on.
Like everybody was impressed when I was just doing four magazines every
Mhm.
quarterly, but now it's like, oh, I'll do five and six. Yeah, no
Yeah,
problem. You know, they don't all release on the same date, and
yeah,
it's nice to do something different, than what everybody is accustomed to.
yeah. And so it's been doing pretty well.
Yes, it's I have had several number one new releases with um Cryptozoology Digest, with Squatch GQ, with Dinosauria and Prehistoric Creatures, and with the Rockhound magazine. They all have gone, like, within the week of them being released. All of them have become number one new releases. So that is something I'm very proud of, and a lot of hard work goes into creating the magazines because I do it from scratch. I do the interviews, I write the articles, I edit articles that people, send in. I put the magazines together, I upload them to Amazon, and then I promote them. So I do a lot of the job, and it's nice to see that people appreciate the magazines and order them and enjoy reading them.
That's awesome. I'm glad to hear it's doing so well. Um, so to subscribe to the magazines, do you have to do it through Amazon or would they contact you?
The magazines are currently available on Amazon,
Okay.
or people can buy them from me when I am at events. I don't do any shipping myself,
Mhm.
just because that is a for a small time publisher, especially somebody who is just doing it through Amazon. Um, Shipping them out yourself, that can get you into a bit of trouble because there's always going to be a situation where there's a lack of communication or a miscommunication, and people say, well, I didn't receive that, can you send me out another issue?
Mhm.
And um, when you're buying them yourself and producing them yourself and shipping them out, that can get kind of expensive. So I rather just for people to order them from Amazon.
Mhm.
They are available in the ebook form, which you can read on Kindle or tablet or your phone or any device like that, or a printed version, which will be mailed to you. And it's just like a magazine you would get anywhere else. You're just ordering it print on demand from Amazon, or you can buy the printed versions from me at events.
Okay. That's interesting. I was always curious, and I meant to ask, but I get so busy with other stuff, I don't remember to ask. Um, so when you do the research for the magazines, do you actually go out like on expeditions and stuff
Oh,
like? Oh, do you have any
yeah.
coming up?
I'm looking to most likely go to Tucson, Arizona in February. The biggest focus of that is going to the huge gem and mineral show that's there. But I'm also looking at adding in a trip to the Superstition Mountains, the Arizona Museum of Natural History, maybe Tombstone. So I generally try to get as much into a trip as I can. Unfortunately, usually if people are traveling with me, they're like, "Where are we going now?" It's like, "Oh, just take a nap and let me drive," because this is what I do. I drive my friends and family crazy because they're like, "Oh, okay, we're going there to do this." No, well, we're doing that, but I usually like for one day I have like 6 things planned out, 6 stops that we're going to make, and we're going to do the whole attraction, or we're going to do the whole trail, or we're going to go through this store, eat at this place, so that I have material for a travel article. And that's how I've done it for at least 10 years now. So when I'm in a location, I am looking for everything that I can cover for each one of the magazines, and leaving no stone unturned if I can help it.
Yeah, the more information you have, then probably the easier it is to write an article.
It is, because you can't just go by what you see posted on the internet. Because trust me, I will give a case in point. There in Indiana, there was this famous grave that was in the middle of the road, and old pictures of it. It was a grandmother, and her grave site, her grandson, for I don't know how many years, but every time the road construction wanted to alter the road in that area, he would sit at her gravesite with a shotgun,
Oh wow.
and he would guard her grave because they weren't going to desecrate her grave by removing it and putting it somewhere else so that they could repave the road or do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like a monument to her, and people would decorate it with flowers, and the photos that I saw online were very, very beautiful. So I timed it right. I had to do some things in Indiana, and I thought, okay, I'm going to go to this at dusk or just after, nightfall, to get the full, effect of it being a grave and everything. And I
Uh-huh.
get there, and there's no flowers, there's no monuments, there's a plaque, and the grave has been surrounded in brick, and it does not look anything like what they show in the pictures online. So this is why I go to locations to make sure that it's what people are talking about or posting about or showing pictures of. Because if I get there and it's different, then I feel obligated to tell my readers, okay, this is an interesting backstory to this location, but what used to be there and what is there now is completely different. So if you're going there, here's what you can expect.
Okay.
And so it gives people, a choice of, okay, do I want to drive out in the middle of nowhere just to see this?
Mm-hmm.
Because that's not what is actually there right now.
Yeah. Huh.
So I do that um, with all. I've done travel writing for 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And any location that I go to, I want to make sure, one, it's what they say it is. Two, it's safe for my readers to go to. It's legal for them to go to. I'm not a fan of these uh, urban, legend trippers, or whatever they want to call it, who essentially do a breaking and entering into a location and then walk around and maybe vandalize it, taking pictures and stuff like that. I'm not a fan of that because you're ruining history and you're making it a location that's going to be off limits to everybody.
Yeah.
So I try to do my due diligence to make sure that one, the location is what they make it out to be, whether it's haunted, whether there's, um, Bigfoot activity around there, whether it's just a cool place to eat or, odd, phenomenons go on there. I want to make sure that it's legit, it's safe, and it actually exists. So those are the three, criterias when I'm doing travel writing, that I, make sure, and when I accept articles, I actually, will go on people's Facebook pages who submit articles if it's about a location and see if they've actually been there. Have they posted about it? Have they done pictures about it? Are they just, pulling stuff off the internet and putting it in their article? I want to make sure that they've actually gone there and gotten the experience so that they are reporting what is actually there and not something that they've heard secondhand or read, off the internet.
So that would be a lot of fun, getting to travel around and back up the research that you look up online, and sometimes seeing if it's if it lives.
It is, and I love it, and owning the magazines has afforded me the opportunities to do this. And I also travel with like my 3 little dogs. So they are always gung-ho for adventure. Like, I don't have to tell them twice, get in the car, we're going bye-bye. And they are all for it. They ride very well in their crates. They love going hiking. They ride well in a stroller. So if I'm driving anywhere, they're going with me. And they've been to, I think I counted it out, to 9 different states now.
Oh, wow.
So, and the 2 babies are I call them babies, but they're only 2 years old. So they're off to a good start. They've been to Gettysburg. They've been to Lake Champlain. They've gone digging and swimming in the surf in Maryland. They've been to Minnesota and, chase black bear. So they've had quite a few events. They've gone to Idaho and gone, geode hunting. So they've done quite a bit in their young lives, more than most kids have probably done.
Yeah. I would say so. That's something you as a kid, you go to school and be like, guess what I did this summer?
Yeah. I mean, my dogs are, they go all out and they just love it. And to them, there's nothing better than, days worth of driving in the car to get out and go, hiking on a trail to take a picture of a waterfall or, a cool rock formation. And they just live for that. They love it.
That's awesome. Growing up, I got the opportunity whenever summer came around to travel with my grandparents and travel like that. So I was actually one of those kids who got the chance to go to Washington and go see Mount St. Helens and the Grand Canyon and Crater, Oregon. And that built the passion up for the love of for mountains. I can't get enough of mountains. I love them.
Right.
And the Northwest, in my opinion, I'm not saying it to make people mad. I think it's a lot prettier than the other side, like Smoky Mountains. I mean, they're both really pretty, but my favorite are the Rockies and Yellowstone, all of that. I love that area.
Yeah, it's there's so many different places to go explore, and it's always something that I look forward to. And so, like this year, I've got Arizona. I might be going to Alaska in August to do a little bit of everything up there. And so it's I love being able to travel and just grab a suitcase or grab my backpack, grab the dogs, and we're off. And see what I can find out there.
Yeah, that sounds like the dream job.
It's definitely wonderful. Now, I will say that I am quite jealous of, he's one of my writers for my magazine, but he's also an author. Deborah Michaels, I know you're out there. I know you're watching. And I am so jealous because you go around the country in an RV, and that's what I would love to be doing, in the next year or so. But he's like every week he's somewhere else, and I'm like, oh man, that's so awesome. So he just posted that he was at the La Brea Tar Pits, and I'm like,
see, that's a place I've never been. I'd love to go. Man, that sounds exciting. So what is what is one of your favorite articles that you've written?
That is, I have written so many articles. Because before I took over ownership of the magazines, I was the head writer, and for 3 years, God, was it 3 years? I think it was 3 years. I was supplying 90% of the content, so I was doing all the major interviews, all of the interesting articles, and it's always, for me, it's always interesting to do the research. So when I'm interviewing somebody new, and it's not somebody that I talk to day to day, or I don't follow their career, to me it's enjoyable to do the research to see what they've written, what shows they've been on, what their viewpoints and perspectives are on different things, and then ask them the questions of, okay, so what are your thoughts on this situation or this topic, and to get their information. I would say one of my favorite people to interview is Russell Cord from Expedition Bigfoot. Russell's fantastic. I love interviewing him. He's a wonderful person to talk to at live events or interviewing him. He's phenomenal. But there are so many interesting investigators out there, and everybody has a different take. Everybody has a different story and experience with everything that they've come in contact with, and just getting everybody's different viewpoints. For me, it's always something to look forward to, and it's what I stay up at night like, okay, I want to ask this question, I'm gonna and trying to decide who I'm going to interview, and for each different magazine, because now it runs the gamut. I talk to cryptozoologists, I talk to paranormal investigators, ufologists, but I also talk to paleontologists for the dinosaurs, and rockhound prospectors, and there's so many cool different people that I get to interview and talk to, that it's really, to me, just everything I've ever wanted to do in my life, and now I have the opportunity to do it, plus travel.
Yeah, exactly. So for some of the articles, you said you've been on expeditions. What are some of the past ones that you've?
So Lake Champlain, looking for Champ. I was there. We did a small expedition. It was me and Scott Martis. Unfortunately, other members of the team were not able to sync up with us at that time period, but Scott Martis and I did drive around the St. Albans and Vermont, or Burlington, Vermont areas of Lake Champlain, doing different experiments with underwater recordings and trying to pick up things, observing the bay from different vantage points to see what kind of activity was going on in the bay, going to different locations, and just getting a perspective of how do people really view Champ. I also got a chance to meet up with Andrea and Kyle from, I believe it's the Champ Day Festival in Port Henry, and to get their perspectives and their eyewitness encounters, and get a little tour of the town of Port Henry to see all the different Champ memorabilia that was there. And that was really interesting. And then another one that I thought was interesting was going to West Virginia and going both to Point Pleasant for Mothman, of course, and going to the Flatwood Monsters, little hole in the wall, area, and going to all the different like sites that, were monumental in the sightings reports, and getting different people's takes on, what they thought was being witnessed, and how the town actually incorporates it into their very fabric and being, and actually celebrates it. So, those were some of the most interesting ones. Now, Wisconsin, the whole state of Wisconsin is fantastic, because you've got the Beast of Bray Road, you've got UFOs, you've got vampires, you've got haunted locations, you've got Circus World, you've got all these really fantastic locations, and every town seems to have its own little niche. And before I started writing for the magazines, I was actually going every other weekend to Wisconsin, just going and getting pictures and getting stories and stuff like that, because I was still doing travel writing for an online company, but I hadn't quite started writing for Squatch GQ. So I was building up my my portfolio of articles and pictures and stuff like that. And it seemed like no matter which direction you wanted to go to in Wisconsin, there was something cool just around the bend. And so Wisconsin ate up like a whole summer for me of just, throw the dogs. This was before I had the babies. I just had my one little min pin Teagun. Get in the car, let's go. And we'd be off. And it'd be like, cheese sticks for dinner? Yes, we're going to have cheese sticks for dinner, because it's Wisconsin. And of course, they're fresh made. And,
yeah,
each little town has a different cheese, or, this or that. And so, and that's one of the most fantastic things about being able to be a writer for my magazines, is just going and doing it. And you get back on Monday morning, you're like, oh, look at where I was this weekend. And everybody's like, oh, that's cool. Look at that,
Yeah, exactly. Did you ever encounter anything strange or weird during some of these expeditions?
So I'm glad you asked. So on one of my trips, actually my very first trip up to Ely, Minnesota, where my mom is the black bear curator for the North American Black Bear Center, we had gone up there. I had gone up there. And at the time I was driving my Jeep Wrangler, and it was the very last week of October going into November. And I had gone up there because we were going to go up to Winnipeg for the weekend and do some different sites in Winnipeg. We had a wonderful trip up there. And then when we came back, we got the forecast that there was actually a winter storm coming in, and in Minnesota through, down into the UP of Michigan, you don't take snow lightly.
No.
Whereas we might get a centimeter of snow, they get inches of snow. Mm. So I wanted to be on the road before the storm actually came through. So I got up around 2 a.m. Sunday morning and was on the road. And I always tell people, when you get to Ely, Minnesota, you have to drive to the middle of nowhere and drive past it, because that's about what you do. Mm-hmm. You have to take a 4-lane highway to Virginia, Minnesota, and then from Virginia cut across to Ely on a 2-lane. So as I'm headed back to Virginia to pick up the 4-lane highway, as I'm coming up to the on-ramp, my headlights in front of me show headlight, thick furry leg, tall grass, thick furry leg, fog light. Wherever the head and chest of this animal was higher than what my head was in my Jeep. Now, standing outside my Jeep with my chin on the roof of my Jeep, I'm 5'8". So, that's about 5 foot right there. So wherever the head and chest of this animal was, it was about a 7 or 8 foot tall
Oh, wow.
creature. And the best way I can describe the hair on the legs is if you've ever seen a black Newfoundland dog that's been outside most of its life, that matted, reddish tinged black hair, that's what I was seeing reflected in what my headlights shone on. And these legs were thicker than a moose. They were hairier than a moose. Black bear are already hibernating by that time. So I'm pretty sure that I had my first sighting of a Bigfoot.
Well, how long did it last?
It was about 15 seconds of me slowly going up on the on-ramp and going past it, then getting up on the expressway and stopping. Because it took about that long to realize that wasn't a bear, that wasn't a moose. Those were legs you were looking at. Legs as thick as tree trunks.
Wow.
And I sat there for about, a minute, and I thought I could cut across the median, go back down the off ramp, come back around. Now, at that time, this was 10 or more years ago, I had the little Motorola flip phone from T-Mobile, and I'm like, I'm not sure that the picture is going to be that great. But then it dawns on me, you're in a soft-sided Jeep. What's that phone call going to go like when you call your mom and you're like, Mom, a Bigfoot flipped my Jeep? First, I'm going to be accused of falling asleep at the wheel or being on something, which neither one was happening. But it's like, okay, so Virginia is not exactly right there. It's another 10 minutes down the road. So you're going to have to call a tow truck, which is probably going to get the police called on you. And this is not going to end well. So by then I was like, nope, I know what I saw. I'm just going to drive. So as I'm driving down the road, I'm like, if it is a Bigfoot, how do I know that Bigfoot isn't calling out to other Bigfoots in the area and there's not one down the road waiting with a rock to throw at my windshield? So now I'm a little bit paranoid. So I can say I did 5 over the speed limit, which is 65. So I was doing 70. I didn't really feel safe until I got over the bridges going from Duluth, Minnesota into Superior, Wisconsin. And then I felt safe. I was in the UP and I was like, okay, now I just have to worry about the average wildlife like bears and wolves and what have you, deer crossing in front of the car. They're not going to throw a rock. They're going to probably run, probably not the deer. So just have to be alert for those. So from then on, it was just driving home and being like, I want to, I'm just going home. Nobody mess with me. But, I drive the UP at least twice a year to go up and see my mom. And the UP is, for people who haven't driven in Michigan's UP, it's a very long, vast, expansive road. And there are stretches of it, 50 to 100 miles long, where there's nothing. You might see an occasional house, you might get passed by an occasional car, but there's no gas stations, there's no stores, there's nothing. And that's when you really want to have like a dash cam going or be ready to, pull up that camera and take a picture, because that's where I think you're going to get your most interesting activity. And I say this because I've had a interesting sighting. I had to reroute from the main Route 2, I believe it was, that I was driving on because of construction and stuff that was going on. So I got rerouted, and it actually went through a portion of the different national forests. And as I was coming, it was just past dark, and as I was coming up to a stop sign, looking left to right, making sure there's no oncoming traffic coming, and my headlights are shining in front of me. And I see probably about 500 feet up the road, there's a large animal that is coming up to the side of the road. And in 2 bounds, it goes from the passenger side of the road of my car to the middle of the 2-lane to the other side of the 2-lane, and then it's off into the woods. Now, as it was doing this, I was driving towards it, and it didn't hesitate. It didn't even stop to look that I was coming. But it obviously knew I was coming because here comes headlights. This was a very big animal, bigger than a bear. And the head was not very bearish. It didn't have the domed head of a Bigfoot. But what it did have was a tail and pricked ears. Now, the UP is known for Bigfoot sightings, but it's also known for dogman sightings. And I can confirm that there's dogfoot activity up there because on my way up to the Menominee Bigfoot conference last June, I believe it was, I stopped at the rest area that's right there on the Lake Michigan shoreline, right out of Nubian, right off of Route 2. Had my little miniature pincher with me. And the thing I loved about this rest area was not only was it a rest area, but had a large parking lot where people can rest, but there's also beach access. So you can walk down the little board walk gazebos onto the beach, and you can go quite a ways up and down the beach. So I had walked her to the west a little bit, and she wasn't really interested in doing anything, but there was a channel cut for a stream towards on the east side. So I walked back over to the east side, and as we were getting close to the channel cut, she did not really want to go any closer to it. And this is a dog who's fearless. She'll take down a 6'5" man without, she's 7 pounds, but she'll take him down. And as I'm trying to, get pictures of this, stream that cuts through the beach down to the shoreline, I noticed that she is gruffling at something. So I turned to look at her, and this is when I see these paw prints. Now, her paw print is about the size of a quarter. She's 7 pounds, 10.5 inches. I wear a men's size 10 shoe. I have pictures of these tracks. This track is as wide as my foot and half the size of my foot. And I weigh 165 pounds. I was barely making a dent in the sand. These tracks were about a ½ inch into the sand.
Wow.
And it was a full track of them going down the beach into the shoreline. And then wherever this animal came back out at was in a different location because there wasn't a returning track. Now, the scary thing is this set of footprints is only about 150 feet from the front door of the rest area. So this animal is coming into an area where there's human activity 24/7 and is not afraid to do it. Now, I took pictures of these paw prints, and at the conference, Ken Gearhart was there, Barnaby Jones was there, Allison Jornlin was there, Jay Beauchamp, not Beauchamp, Finding Jay was there, and I showed everybody the footprints, and everybody was like, well, we can tell you what it's not. That's not a bear. That's not a cougar. That's not a wolf, because it was actually a longer footprint. It's in canines. There's what we call a cat paw, which is looks like a cat paw, but then there's a hare paw, like the back foot of a rabbit.
Mm-hmm.
This was a longer foot, meaning that this animal can travel over different surfaces at a high speed and be able to grip into the ground and not lose its footing.
Holy cow.
So I can verify that there is dogman activity in the UP because I've seen the footprints. And I've seen what I believe is a dogman crossing the road.
And that was the sighting you saw in the headlights, right?
No, the sighting. So the Bigfoot sighting I had was in Minnesota, just outside of Virginia.
Okay, yeah.
Minnesota. The dogman sighting, I cannot remember what town I was nearest to. Because just because it says that there's a town there doesn't mean town like, hey, there's a McDonald's and a Walmart and everything else. There might just be like one gas station that's been closed for 5 years in that area. I could probably navigate back to the location by, with the roads, but there wasn't really any landmarks, just lots of pine trees. And that's what when you're driving through the UP, it's either birch trees, pine trees, or marsh and swamp, or the Great Lakes on either side of you. Now, the one that I found the footprints, that was the rest area right outside of Nubian, I believe it's Nubian Way. And it's right off of Route 2. It's the rest area that's right there, right on Lake Michigan's shoreline.
Okay. And was that in the morning? Were the prints pretty fresh?
It was in the morning. I want to say it was probably, maybe around 10 o'clock in the morning. It was early because I think I left my house in Michigan, in Lower Michigan, probably like 5 o'clock in the morning, and was getting up there and saw those. And if she hadn't if my min pin hadn't made any gruffles about it, probably would have walked right past to the stream, taking pictures of the stream, and then walked back with her and not even looked down to see these tracks. It was only because she was kind of like doing a snort at them that I looked down and was like, where did those come from? And they literally come across the highway, down onto the beach, down to the water's edge, and disappear into the water.
Really?
Yeah. And so my thoughts is this animal wanted water to drink, came down for a drink, and then maybe cooled itself off in the water, and then went back up, to wherever it likes to hang out in the woods. Maybe it watches to see if human beings are leaving trash. And, if you leave food in the trash, food is food. Animals, predators don't care. They're going to raid it. But they don't want human beings around. So obviously they're going to wait till there's nothing around there, and then they're going to go raid the dumpsters. But this is, that I believe that particular rest area is only about 10 miles from a town, 5 to 10 miles from a town, Nubian Way. So we know that wolves have a territory of, 80 miles that they can cover, 40 miles in one day. So we can't, discount that a dog man would have a similar territory and be willing to just go for a walk to get its meal.
Yeah, I would imagine a dog man would travel a lot further distance, especially having an elongated back end.
Yep. And the fact that
like you said earlier.
they can go from quadruped to bipedal is another game changer, because they don't have to play by our rules of, hey, you have to run on those back legs, you're bipedal. Well, no, they decided they wanted to go quadruped right now and increase the speed. So
So, do you think these things are actual physical creatures?
I do. I believe so. With Bigfoot, I believe that they are a flesh and blood creature that has evolved from the fossil record here on Earth. Now, that's not to say that there, isn't a alien race out there that are Bigfoot looking, because we don't know what else is out there in the universe. We have ideas. We have, some very educated guesses of what else could be out there, but we don't really know. And if they're coming here in any type of spacecraft, the fact that they can travel to our planet when we have a hard time just making it to the moon, that gives them a big edge over us.
Yes.
And then there's also the fact that we as human beings, we have a tiny grasp on interdimensional travel and quantum physics and how that might be possible. But if there are animals out there that can do this, that are intelligent, and they just come here whenever they want and then leave, that is also a game changer, because this explains why people might see a dog man and then it disappears before their eyes, or they come around a bend in the trail and the footprints are there, but the creature's not. It's gone.
Yeah.
So I think Dogman is a little bit different than what a Bigfoot is, because we don't, except for the dire wolf, we do not have anything in the fossil record that points to an upright walking bipedal canine. We do for primates, humans being the biggest of the upright walking bipedal primates, but that doesn't mean that other primates have not gone the similar route and just gone a different branch of evolution. Maybe they like it better in the woods. Maybe they don't like paying taxes. Maybe they don't want to associate with human beings because they've seen, kind of what destruction we do to this planet. And they're like, no, that's okay. Pump the brakes. We don't really want to interact with you. We want to be here after you guys are gone.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot of different potentials, but with the interdimensional, this, gives an opening for why people report seeing Mothman or similar creatures like that. If they're not part of the fossil record and we cannot, trace back to where they could come from here on Earth, then they either have to be alien or interdimensional. And those two possibilities, I think, are what people should be more worried about, because if they can come and go at any time, then that means that if they come here, they can take any number of us and leave with us and never bring us back.
Yeah.
Hence the 411 reports in places like Mount Shasta being, so known for people disappearing. I've started listening to, I'm not certain of what the show host's name is, but he does the people go missing in the state parks and national parks, the what lies beneath, and what
the podcast about the book.
Podcast. Yes, he's got a whole series on YouTube, and I've been listening to more and more of those, because people, you might hear a story on the news. Oh, somebody went missing, and police searched and couldn't find them. And you just, you tune into that one story and you hear that one story and you're like, oh, that's tragic, but it happens. But then when you start researching it and you realize how many people every year go missing from the state parks, from the national parks, from the, places like Yosemite, Yellowstone, suddenly you're like, there's an explanation out there. Depends on who wants to understand it and go looking for it.
Yeah, exactly. I David Paulides, he's the one that writes the Missing 411 book.
Yep.
I've read a lot. I've read a few of his books, and then I've seen some of the documentaries based off the Missing 411.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, the fact that the park rangers, the National Park Services, don't want to interact with like the FBI or anything with these investigations tells you they know a lot more than they're telling.
Oh yeah, and if I am to believe all the different stories that are reported on, this one podcast show, What Lurks Beneath, he's got a couple of different versions, but the park rangers are pretty much told not to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Just, oh, well, they're gone, they're missing, because they have an idea of what's out there, but they don't want to explain it to anybody, because how do you explain that you saw this 8-foot tall creature that can overpower, a buffalo by itself and take out human beings?
Yeah.
That's a predator that nobody in their right mind really wants to encounter. No. And especially if they've shown that they are aggressive.
And especially, if people become savvy to it, they wouldn't visit the parks. They would stop visiting, and the parks' revenue would stop.
Yep. And that's what they don't want. They want people to come and to enjoy it. But if the park rangers tell you to stay out of a certain area,
should do it. I should probably do it.
I don't care how good the Bigfoot evidence is to collect. It might not be a Bigfoot that you're interacting with. It could be a grizzly. It could be a man-eating cougar that they have not, been able to track down and capture. It could be a wolf pack, but they don't want to have any of the wildlife blamed for anything, because then they might have to hunt it down and kill it, and that's the last thing that they want to do. They're actually proud of the wildlife that they can keep in the wild, in the national parks. But if you have something else, whether it's human, whether it's cryptid, whether it's paranormal or alien, out there doing stuff, it's like they don't want you to either encounter it or go to the locations where the activity is most noted, because they don't want you to become another, report.
No. And then there's those people who aren't too privy to the cryptid subject. And what they don't realize is there's other things out there besides Bigfoot and Dogman you know nothing about. I know if you listen to all these stories and some of these encounters, you've got reptilian creatures, you've got all kinds of things that are out there that seem to be rare, but they're there.
Mm-hmm. And like I said, we don't know how these interdimensional portals work.
No.
So, they're always saying that, mutant species have been released into like the waterways and stuff like that. This could be very true, but if you have portals opening up in water and a aquatic species coming in from someplace else, and suddenly it's living in this lake, and that's one of the reasons why I love lake monster reports so much, is that you can't verify them and you can't disprove them. So the lake monsters are the Schrodinger's cats of the cryptid world, because they could be there, they might not be there. It just depends on who has seen them, how recently they've seen them, and what kind of activity is in the area. Are there pets going missing? Are there people going missing?
Mm-hmm.
Is the fish population diminishing? Is the deer population diminishing? These are things, clues that we look for when we're doing research of, could there be a unknown creature in this area? If you have a lot of different elements like that, of different things adding up, that, okay, there should be an apex predator in this area, but nobody's seen one, but the deer population's down, the fish population's down. waterfowl is not landing in this lake anymore. Ducks, geese, anything is not landing in this lake. People are not swimming here. So you start talking to the locals and you're like, is there anything going on with this lake? And at first people might say no, but if you talk to enough people, somebody will tell you something.
Yes.
And it could just be, well, my grandfather used to say, or my cousin's best friend. But I find that behind each one of those stories is a little piece of truth, and it's worth investigating.
Yeah, exactly. And I know, back to the interdimensional thing, I know Eric from Uncomfortable brought up a good point when I was talking to him the other day, that, us as humans have kind of been watered down with technology and that kind of stuff. So we only use so much of our brain.
Right.
Imagine, a creature out there that can use certain parts of the brain that we can't even comprehend. There's no telling what they're going to be able to do.
Right. Well, I mean, so for instance, your African male lion, when it roars, it is actually producing infrasound, which is what it uses to initially stun gazelle or anything like that, so that they have a better chance of running them down and chasing them. And infrasound actually causes damage to your physical body.
Yep.
So if an animal like a lion can use infrasound and uses it as a hunting technique, humans don't have infrasound.
No.
We can't produce it. We can yell as deep and as loud as we want, and we cannot produce infrasound. So they have, that is one thing that they have over, us. And if you look at animal species as a whole, some of the different very interesting, specialties that they have. Dolphins can use sonar. Squid are chromatophores. They can change different colors. They can produce light. Sharks, they can renew that, they have an everlasting belt of teeth.
Yep.
We humans get two,
Yep. Yep.
You're screwed after you lose the second pair. But each one of these different species has adapted to live in an environment where humans do not live very well. We don't live well in the water. We don't do very well in hot, arid summer, desert conditions. We don't do very well in the deep woods where, if we can't go to Walmart's, and we have to catch our dinner, we might be, watching Survivor, or, Naked and Afraid for ideas. But, the average human being, we've become used to cell phones, technology, being able to drive 5 minutes and get fast food, or go to a restaurant or go to a store, buying our food, buying our clothing. We have it relatively easy as a living organism on this planet. Whereas, we're not exposed to the elements 24/7. We don't have to hunt for our food. We don't have to avoid predators like human beings. So, we might have it easy as a species, but think of everything that, we give up. And if we do someday have to interact with an alien species that comes here in full force, what are we going to do?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm not even sure. I don't have high hopes for us when it comes to that.
And our best bet is to, give the aliens Mountain Dew and Doritos or Taco Bell and get them hooked on pop music or something. I don't know.
Yeah. Get them hooked on a show or something. Yeah. That's definitely technology has definitely messed us up. People aren't as in tune to the woods like they used to be. Even, Native Americans back in the day when they were living in the woods, and
Hmm.
teepees like that were more adept to the woods more than the colonials.
Yep.
Uh, you know, you once if they were chasing Indians into some woods, good luck. you're
Uh,
not you're
true.
not going to find them. They're adept to that.
Right.
Um, and and that says a lot about these creatures. People often ask, well, how come we don't ever see them or catch them or anything like
Right.
that?
Because they, you know, people don't understand natural occurring, species you walk by every day and you don't even realize they're there.
Nope.
Snakes, moths, reptiles, frogs, birds, deer, mammals. People walk by them every single day, don't realize they're there. And that's just a simple, you know, animal living out there in the wild. Now, take something like a Bigfoot or a dogman,
Hmm.
an apex predator. If they don't want you to see them, you're not going to see them. They know how to use camouflage. I actually teach a workshop on or do a lecture on this of hiding in plain sight when you are, with natural occurring species. How in cryptozoology, this is how they do it.
Yeah, because humans are, we're our eyes are tuned to look for discoloration or
Yep.
movement.
Yep.
When you're in the woods, there's none of that.
Right. A species, an animal will stay put or they will make sure that they blend in when a predator is present.
Hmm. And a story that really sticks out to me that I've heard is a guy in Colorado. I think it was in Colorado or somewhere up the northwest. But he went to go pee. He peed on a log. Um, Starts walking away. That log gets up and walks away, and it's a Sasquatch. He didn't even know because it sat so perfectly still. He just didn't pay much attention to it. Stuff like that. Now I don't know how true that story is. Supposedly it's true. I wasn't there, but examples like that tells you how perfectly still these creatures can sit without moving,
Right.
without making any noise, and you're not gonna notice it.
Exactly. I mean, just, you're a deer. I mean, this time of year here in Michigan, well, normally this time of year in Michigan, the grass is very gray, very brown. We've had weird weather this year, so everything is
Oh
still
yeah.
green. I have plants that are trying to like bloom right now outdoors because they think it's spring. And it's like, tulip, go back to sleep. You're not, no, don't bloom right now. We're going to get snow, I'm sure, at some point. But normally, this time of year, the deer, their coats, from the tip of their nose to the, horns on their head to the hooves on their feet, they blend in with the weeds in the grass. And you can be looking out your back window and not even realize that there's a deer 10 feet in front of you or 10 feet away from your house until it moves and looks up at you because it's blending in with that background, with
Yep.
that scenery.
And the only thing it's moving are those ears when it hears something.
Yep.
Yep. I've been out hunting, and sometimes I could walk right by a deer and not even see it until it takes off running because they sit so perfectly still. It throws me off every time. Squirrels are a little easier because they can't sit still. But yeah, that's definitely something people don't realize because that question always comes up. Well, how
Right.
come we catch them? How come we don't ever see them? Well,
Because they are better at us than, we go into the woods looking for them. They live in the woods. And if they don't want us to see them, then they are just going to blend in.
yep,
And you're going to walk right by them and be like, there's nothing here.
yep. And then you hear these stories of where people come across them, and sometimes these creatures will have a surprise expression on their face. Oh, I've been seen. I didn't know you were there because they weren't paying attention or something.
Right. And, I think that is just a matter of they let down their guard just like people do.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like, any species will. You get complacent and you get comfortable and you're not expecting a human being to come walking down the trail or into your part of the wood or anything like that. And suddenly there you are and there they are. And you're like, you're not supposed to exist. And they're like, yeah, we weren't, we didn't really want you to see us,
Yep. They'll if they know that you're there most of the time, they will go the other direction.
Right.
Um,
Which is why I like to hike with my dogs a lot because they can pick up on things faster than I do. And it's like, okay, if my min pin is hackles up and kicking those feet and doing her bluff charges, then that means there's something I need to be aware of.
Yep. And then you know which direction to look and pay attention to.
Yep.
Exactly. It's real interesting, like let's see, Boggy Creek, like Falk, Arkansas. I was actually out there a few weeks ago. You hear them trying to track the thing down with hunting dogs, and the hunting dogs get one whiff of this creature. They don't want to have anything to do with it.
Yeah, it depends on the dog, and it depends on how they've been trained. My little min pin, like I said, she's fearless. She has bluff charged a black bear and chased it off. I had her on her hiking harness and her lead and was getting stuff out of the back of my car up at my mom's house in Ely, Minnesota. And a bear just came walking out of the woods like, hey, is it breakfast time? Now here's me with a chocolate chip cookie in my mouth. And my min pin was eating her food. And I was just grabbing a bag because I, just threw her a treat while I was grabbing it. Luckily, I had her on her hiking lead because I wanted her to go pee pee. And I heard a behind me, which is a black bear doing a chuff. And she heard it. She went flying past me, hit the end of her lead, which is 10 feet, and did her "I will kill you now," bark, and was kicking her legs. And the black bear was like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but I'm running. The black bear launched itself over, a couple of cords of wood and was back in the woods. And my mom came out and said, everything okay? I took the cookie out of my mouth. Yeah, Teagun's just beating up black bears. And so put the cookie back in my mouth, shut the hatch of my escape and went back inside. And then on another occasion, we were at a big cat sanctuary and I had her in my travel purse. She's only 7 pounds. So yes, of course she fits. And we came up to this enclosure where there was an old male lion and it was very strong smell of lion. He did not like men. And of course, the guy at the front of the group is taking his picture. And so he does this deep bellowing roar. And about 10 seconds later from my purse comes this growl. And she made almost like a chuffing noise back at the lion. And the lion was like, how dare you speak to me like that? And he got so agitated and he walked to the back of his enclosure and flopped himself back down and was chuffing at us. And the woman leading the tour started laughing. She's like, that's the first time anybody's ever told off our old male lion. And he has, been like, how dare you? So she, like, these things do not faze her. Bear, lion. I've had her at the Kentucky Horse Park. She's walked right up to Clydesdales and been like, I can take you. We're talking Clydesdales whose feet are like the size of a dinner plate. And she's like, bring it on, horse. So I also take her hiking with me, and our encounter on that beach, she was letting me know that there was those footprints there.
Yeah.
Because she got a smell of them and was like, getting the scent in her nose. And then I was more interested in taking the picture of them than following them because I knew where they went. They went down to the shore of the lake. So it wasn't a matter of me asking her to track them, because she does have tracking dog training on her. But it was more of, I wanted to get those pictures, now before somebody destroys them, and get those, documented. So it just depends on how the tracking dogs or hunting dogs are trained. And if they're used to hunting raccoons, a raccoon might put up a fight, but it's not an apex predator. But a bear, a cougar, African male lion, things that eat the wolves, those are apex predators. And so the dog has to be exposed to trailing something that it knows it can either take or it's not afraid of.
Yeah.
I've worked with dogs for like 45 years, so that's why I can this is why I'm very confident in what I'm saying, because I've trained dogs. Younger, and I've worked with dogs in all different fashions, and showing them to obedience, to agility, grooming them, breeding them. I've worked with Minkins to German Shepherds to English Springer Spaniels to Poodles, everything in between. So I've got a very deep knowledge in canines.
Well, I appreciate you coming on.
Oh, thank you.
I really enjoyed talking with you. We went over an hour and 7 minutes. So.
Oh, wow.
Usually I aim for an hour, and we did well over that. So I do appreciate you taking the time coming on. I know we'll be in touch more in the future, because I'll be doing my own conferences and expeditions and that kind of stuff. So
hey, I'm just a few keystrokes away. Just hey, we're going after this. You want to come?
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, I'm hosting this conference. You want to come talk about whatever? Sure. I love to travel.
Absolutely. Well, I will stay in touch, and I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome, and thank you for having me on the show.
Absolutely, and it was good to see you again.
Great to see you too, Josh.
All right. Well, you have a good night.
You too. Thank you.